Hey there, my name's Anthony, and I'm one of the pastors at Keystone Bible Church. We're a multi-congregational church in the Tampa Bay area, and I just want to offer you a thought of encouragement in your walk with Jesus for this week. I was doing some thinking on the greatest sermon ever preached, and you might hear that, and you might think that was maybe by Charles Haddon Spurgeon, or Jonathan Edwards, or Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones, and the truth is that the greatest sermon ever preached wasn't by any of those famous preachers. The greatest sermon ever preached is found in the Gospels in Matthew chapter 5 through 7. It's also in the Gospel of Luke, and so it's the Sermon on the Mount. And in this sermon, Matthew 5 to 7, Jesus has said some very hard things. You know, he said things like, if you want to be blessed, you got to be poor in spirit. Yeah, if you want to inherit the earth, you got to be meek. If you want to be satisfied, you need to hunger and thirst for righteousness. He said some very difficult things. He goes on and says things about anger. He says stuff like, hey, you've heard it said, don't murder. But I tell you, if you have even anger in your heart toward a brother, you're guilty of murder in your heart. He's upping the ante over and over and over again. He's saying things that are absolutely impossible unless you have the Spirit of God living in you to accomplish the words of his law here in the Sermon on the Mount. But what's so fascinating is after he says all these amazing things, at the very end of his sermon, he says this: everyone who, in verse 24, chapter 7, verse 24, he says, everyone who then hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. In other words, if you do the words of Jesus, if you heed them and they soak into your heart so that you live by them, you'll be like someone who built their house on a rock, and you're not going to go anywhere. But then he says in verse 26, everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. Now, what's so encouraging is that we have a promise that Jesus will never leave us nor forsake us. And we have a promise in Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. Jesus will make sure that you are the one who builds your house on the rock, who builds your life on the rock, who is him, who's Christ. Now, sometimes that's really hard though, friends. So let me give you an example. God will put things in your life, and he'll kind of crumble the things you're tempted to build on so that you're only building on the rock. It's like the time a lumberjack had made plans to go and fell every tree in the field. And he was going to do this the very next day. And right before he left, he saw a bird who was just building a nest in one of the trees. And he had compassion on the bird. So what did he do? He went over there and he started chopping down the tree. And the bird's like, what the heck, man? I'm trying to build my nest here. I'm trying to build my home. I'm trying to build my life right now. And the lumberjack just keeps chopping away, agitating this bird until that tree fell. Well, the bird flew to the next tree. And see, he starts building his house and his nest and his life in another tree. So the lumberjack, in compassion, goes to that tree, starts knocking it down, starts chopping it down. And the bird's like, man, what is going on? Why are these things happening to me? How come every time I try to build my life and build my house, I'm agitated, I can't be comfortable, I'm constantly thrown into distress? And so what did he do? He went and he flew and he built his nest and his home on the rock that was on the precipice there on the peak of the mountain area. And the lumberjack smiled and he went home. Listen, God, he will knock down every tree, every structure that you are trying to build your life on that will fall until you get it through your head, get it into your heart to only build your life on the rock who is Christ. All right? That's the encouragement today. That's the guidance. You know, sometimes it's going to hurt, but we can build our lives on Jesus. That's a firm and sure foundation for us. And so let's do that the rest of this week, the rest of this month, the rest of this year. Thanks so much for joining us. If you want encouragement sent to your phone in the middle of your week, you can text MME to the number just listed below here, and we'll send it right to your phone on Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock. And thanks so much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you right here next week on Midweek Morning Encouragement.